All right, guys, got a question about discussing home health care as a nurse. I've already done a pros and cons video. I'm not doing a pros and cons video again. I'm just going to discuss the job itself, sort of tasks you have to do, things you have to do. I myself was a home health care nurse, and if I was to leave the position I am in currently, I would go back to home health. It was to be honest with you, probably my favorite nursing job. It just did not pay as much as I needed, and the hours weren't what I needed at the time. So I took the position I'm in now, and I've been there for several years. So I'm gonna leave the home health alone for a little while. But I would definitely go back in a heartbeat if the money was there and things fell in line. I would go back to home health. So there are two types, or I'm going to call it two types of home health care nurses. There are the nurses that, like I was, that work one shift with one patient. You do your entire day with one single person. All of their tasks are done by you, and then you are either relieved by family or another nurse coming in. And then there's a second type of nurse, of home health care nurse, and these are sort of the floating nurses. They sort of go around. They do an entire shift, except they may see 8 people in 8 hours, or 12 people in 12 hours, however many people. So let's discuss them first. The people that tour around. You are given sort of an assignment every day. This assignment is fairly well known to you. The nurse, you know where you have to go, when you have to be there, who you have to see, things like that. There's not really any surprises. Also in this category are like your nurses who are not charge nurses, but they only do like the intake process, and it's not ringing a bell as to what they're actually called at this moment in time. But so there's one nurse that tours around and does the entire intake process. They make sure that you have all of your stuff that you need. They make sure that you have, you're getting the proper care that you need. They assess your wounds. They assess your abilities. They assess everything you need, everything you can do, the hours you can get, the things like that. These nurses typically work in the office and do a bunch of charting, and they don't really do any hands-on stuff. They may sort of in the very, very beginning. These guys really just kind of assess, do the intake process, get you set up with services for home health, things like that. These nurses are in the office, but they also tour around and check on people like one day a month or one day a quarter, something like that. And they typically know where they're going a little bit in advance. The other part of that same criteria of home health care nurse are the people that do like wound care, or set up tube feedings, or they may run IV antibiotics for like just a little bit for people, or IV meds for just a little bit for people. Again, these people have like a set schedule. They know at 8 a.m. I got to be at this house, 9 I got to be at this house, 10 I got to be at that house. It's not going to be that quick, or it may be that quick, but your entire day before you set out. These people do a lot of driving, and I did work with a girl. I did work with a nurse who did that. I was the stay-at-home nurse, and then this lady would come in and do the wound care. Even though, I could do the wound care, her job was to come in and do the wound care on this particular patient. I can't remember the exact details of why she came in and I didn't do it, but she came in like every Wednesday or something and specifically worked on a wound. And that was all that she did. Once she was done with her wound, she did her charting, and she rolled out. She of course checked to see if we needed any supplies, if I didn't already have them there, things like that. So there are home health care nurses who see many different people per day, but like I said, they typically know who they're going to see every day. It's not a surprise who they're going to see most often, unless something just goes terribly wrong. And they just kind of tour around the area, whatever your location area is that you tour around. I don't know the radius that people can drive. I guess it's different per policy, per company. But they definitely, tour around and check everybody. Now, I did not tour around. I stayed put I was given like one patient assignment a day, and I stayed there the entire shift. And sometimes in the very beginning, I was sort of like a float nurse. Like if a nurse went on vacation or whatever, I would take over that assignment for like, whatever the vacation was, like a week or so, and then the regular nurse would come back. In the beginning, that's how I was, but later on, I became like a set nurse for a set patient for a set shift. Now, when I was doing the floating around, I did it's called respite care. That's where like the nurse comes in and the family has the ability to leave, go to the grocery store, go to school, go to just get out of the house, things like that. And then the family would come back and relieve me. And we called it respite care. It may be called something different elsewhere. But really, I was there and the family relieved me. And I didn't have a permanent assignment at that time. I just kind of floated around and went to these houses and did the task for the patient while the family was gone. Because the family, of course, had the ability to take care of the patient. So I did that until I got an assignment. And when I got an assignment, then I was with a patient who was 24-hour nurse care, and every shift was just like a nursing home shift, 6 to 2 or 7 to 3, 2 to 10 or 3 to 11, and then 11 to 7 or 10 to 6, whatever it is that the shift was. You had one nurse work that entire shift, and then they were relieved by another nurse. Kind of like a nursing home, except you only had one single patient. And you did a lot of charting because you had the time to do the charting. Of course you did all the tasks, feeding, changing, cleaning, med pass, all the activities. If OT came in, occupational therapy or physical therapy came in, you of course assisted with that. Toileting, you assisted with that. Changing, bathing, you assisted with basically everything. And you were the nurse. Now, every now and then there was like some overlap. And so like second shift would come in, and if you were first shift, you could knock out a lot of stuff that you might not have been able to knock out before because you had two nurses and two bodies that could lift and pull and change and things like that. But you still had to keep everybody dry. And charting had its own little timed things in it. So like every 30 minutes you had to document. I checked patient for toileting or, whatever it was. Of course, I don't have a sheet in front of me, so I don't know exactly what it was, and it was a couple years ago. But you still had to chart that you did check for toileting. You did check for turning, if the patient involved turning or movement or whatever it may be. You still had to chart that. And you typically wrote like a little note on that individual every time you charted. So, your charting would be miles long if it was on, if you've ever been to the drugstore, the receipts that you get are, 6, 7, 8 foot long. That was how long your charting would be if you could put it on paper like that. So you charted quite a bit, but you had the time to chart quite a bit. It wasn't a lazy job. It wasn't one that you could just sit back and say, okay, I'm here, I'm going to get paid. It wasn't anything like that, except the one thing you were able to do was provide all of the care to that one patient that you always kind of wanted to apply to that patient when you were at the nursing home. At the nursing home, as a nurse, you may see a patient 20 minutes out of the entire day because you just have so many of them to do. But in home health, you see them 8 hours out of the 8-hour day or 12 hours out of the 12-hour day. And so, you had the ability to chart, but you still had the ability to interact with the patient for an entire 8 hours or an entire 12 hours, whatever it may be. The task that I was given, like I said, the wound care, for whatever reason, it could have been company policy, but I didn't actually do wound care often because we had a touring wound care nurse who simply did wound care, and she drove around and, bandaged everybody up. I'm not exactly sure as to why, because I was trained into doing wound care, but I didn't. One thing I did do was a lot of tube feeds. I did a lot of trach and vent. I keep pointing to that for trach and vent. Trach and vent are actually two different things, but I always say them together, and I don't know why. A trach, is of course this. I've done trach care and vent care, but trach and vent care, I always associate it together. I don't know why I do that. I should probably quit because it's just a habit. Anyways, you do the trach care. Of course, there was a respiratory therapist that also came around and would oftentimes change the bandages or change the trach itself. You didn't do that. You kind of changed the cannula. There's two pieces to that, and you would change the movable piece, I'll call it, the cannula. But, suctioning, of course, all of the meds, and if it was a tube feed, you had to do them through the tube feed, however it was given. But in a lot of the OT, PT orders you would sort of do, it was a good job. I really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed home health care. Like I said, it's probably my favorite nursing job I've ever had. And I would still be doing it. Excuse me. I would still be doing it. But the timing wasn't right for me at the time I was in home health. I couldn't get the hours that I wanted, and I found the job I'm in now. And so I don't really want to leave. But if I was to leave, I would go back to home health. I was in pediatric home health, which I absolutely loved. And pediatrics, I've said before, pediatrics is my dream job. I would love to go back into pediatrics. But at the time it just wasn't right. And we needed more. But if I was to go back to it, home health would be, if I was to leave my position, home health would be where I go. And I would look for another pediatric home health position if I had to go. It was a good job, and I really enjoyed it. And it's just that one-on-one contact that you just don't get anywhere else that is so good. Just a good position. So I hope I answered the question. If you like this video, check this one out over here. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe over there. I hope it helps. Thank you much.